What I would like to talk to you about today is the Agile Culture Code. And it sounds like a fancy title. What's really behind it is looking into the shared patterns between Agile organizations, analyzing patterns of Agile transformations in companies where part of the transformation succeeded, other parts have not succeeded. So trying to filter this out and try to find the logic behind what really drives agility, what enables it, what helps us sustain it. And this is summarized in the Agile Culture Code. So one big question about agility. It seems to work. I think everyone can agree on that. I'm absolutely happy that there's actually a growing research body that underlines that agility, agile working methods, and agile principles do work in most settings, and actually give us also business advantage. And now the question is, how is that possible? And I think part of the reason why agility works so well is because it answers to the request of how do we deal with the increasing complexity, the increasing speed of change, how are we able to deal with this and react in time as a company? And part of it lays in enabling the edges of the organization to do exactly this, sense what's going on since the change and react to it relatively immediate by testing my approach, iterating, and successively following the changes or even getting ahead of them. And for that to work, leaders...
I'm sorry, Stefanie, could you just please go full screen with your presentation? Because now we see we see the next slide and notes on the right side of it.
Oh my gosh, I'm glad I don't have notes on the first slide. Okay. Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah, maybe that's the option.
Why can't I use
Yeah, now it's good. Perfect.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so let's jump in the first slide you've already seen, but you've only seen half of it. So how does it work? The leaders in the organization are usually too far away from what's really happening outside the organization, inside the organization. So what we need is the people at the edges of the organization driving the change and enabling it. So how are we going to do this? When I work with traditional companies, which is most companies I work with, it's a big challenge trying to convince them that there is the need to change this. And I feel the arguments that work best is in a leadership position, most of the people are very well aware that the complexity of what's going on around them exceeds their capacity to deal with and to actually consider all the facts in the decision. So this is a good anchor, I feel, to say, well, guess what? You don't have to do it all by yourself. Let's enable the team. Let's get their insights. Let's use them as instruments to get the company ahead. I don't mean this negative. So the question is, how? Do leaders step down or do we step up? And here we got our leader. She's accompanied by a team. And what we traditionally see, no surprises here, is we have a very clear distinction or separation between what's the leader doing and what is the team doing. We have the executive as the thinker, and then we get the doers on the edges of the organization. We're setting goals at the top, busy achieving them. At the bottom of the organization, the big picture for the leaders and the details, this is for our team to work out. We have the leaders who are raising the bar and the team being busy to actually achieving the bar. You got the vision, and on the other side, you have the work. Now, if we want leaders to call it step down or call it a servant or a coach, if we want this, then we got to step up. Something that seems to work, and we look at progressive organizations, seems to work very well. So somehow people are able to step up and still do their job. And the question, of course, is how is that possible? The answer lies in the company culture. Company culture, when I start talking to executives about it, there's a big, huge question mark. Company culture, fine. Isn't it like a shadow or a cloud or a mass of clay? Something I've been, I inherited it. That's what I often hear coming in this position. And that's what I found. Really, no one wants to talk about it. They will tell you, and you hear the same from teams, by the way, yeah, we got a problem with the culture. Framing culture as an inhibitor or as a problem to achieve the change we want to achieve. So really, people don't want to hear about it. They certainly don't want to hear about what role do I play in the culture I'm in. Why? Because it's very difficult to talk about it. We cannot really see it. Of course, we see symbols. We can observe, we see the office structure, but I'm pretty sure most of you have seen examples of really fancy office spaces. And in the end, the work happens pretty, let's say, with a limited degree of freedom on the team level. And we have buildings that are outdated. We have the office doors you can actually close, and the company booms with agility. So it's really nothing we can have visual signs and make it out. What we also can do, and that's probably the most tricky part of it, is we cannot really talk about culture. It's hard to define it, but there's literature, but it's very hard to describe it. Getting in a company, I don't know, maybe a few of you have recently changed jobs or remember the first days in a new job. You enter the office doors. Nowadays, you just enter a Zoom meeting and you immediately get a feeling for the place, but you can't really put it in words. And the reason why we cannot put it in words is there are no words. It's not established. It's based on unwritten rules. It's based on unspoken criteria we use for decision-making or to judge things that are going on around us. Do we have to talk about culture? Yes, we do. Here's a little collection about some articles I came across that stress the importance of culture. There's McKinsey talking about the importance of investing in culture cannot be overstated. And now McKinsey is interesting because you see it down here. They conduct their surveys coming out with the surprising clear distinction here. The biggest hurdle or the biggest challenge in an agile transformation is the culture and the ways of working. The funny thing is, I looked into it, and this survey has been conducted since a while. And if I got everything together, since about a decade, it's the #1 biggest challenge we encounter. This is why other sources like Harvard Business Review also say culture has become a strategic priority we have to deal with. We're talking about even, and I find this interesting, not on the organizational level, but let's look into teams, individual agile projects I want to have. Even here, the annual State of Agile survey at least read into the data that one of the most frequent reasons that individual agile projects fail, same thing, a culture that does not support agility. See some other sources here. Some actually go as far as saying or naming organizational culture as a tool for change. I find this very difficult. It's not a screwdriver or a hammer. We can really use it as a tool. However, to put the focus in it and understand we have to work with the culture, we can't ignore it, is very important. This is from 2011 from Forbes, an article that described changing structures, starting to work based on agile methodologies, introducing Scrum, etc. is all good, and you'll see initial movement. However, over time, this movement gets sucked back in this big black mass of company culture. I thought I liked the picture Forbes were painting here. And then just a question I recently get a lot, so I included it here. How about the pandemic? What changed? We're out of the offices, or a lot of us are. Did anything change? Is culture less important now? No, it's not. I haven't heard a single voice saying that. It's rather the opposite, because it becomes more of a unique selling point, either driving me back to the office or keeping me connected with my company or not. Here's the nice quote: culture still keeps eating agile software strategies for breakfast. So culture is definitely important. However, it is not what you see. It's written between the lines. It's what you feel. And this is so diffuse. And immediately talking to it, it gets this taste of judging what's there. You've probably hear people talking about the wrong mindset people would have, which is an incredible accusation. I don't want to be told I have a wrong mindset. I would start questioning those around me, questioning the system, questioning what is it that influenced the way I'm taking decision, but people don't have a wrong mindset. I need to get this out of the way really quickly. And the important thing, what we need to know about culture, is it doesn't magically appear like on a stone. All of a sudden there's writing appearing on the stone and sticking like this from there on. Culture is a product of a collective learning experiences. It's a collective assumptions we have. It's those unwritten rules, behavioral tendencies that have collectively built within an organization based on learning experiences in the organization. People started experimenting, gaining experiences. How does it work in our field, in our business field? How do our clients react? What kind of colleagues do I have? What kind of people are those? How does the hierarchy build? Our processes, our structure. We learn what works within these walls, and we learn what does not work. And this is how we build our assumptions that then lead our behavior. Now, the good news about it is something we learn. We continue to learn if we keep an open mind. That is part of the secret. We're going to go through how do you have culture evolve and culture develop. A glimpse in the black box of organizational agility. So the central role of agile culture. I used a gray box. I thought a black box is a little too dramatic. But within this gray box of organizational agility is the culture. Of course, we see other characteristics of agile organizations. They're strong purpose, not always, but they certainly have a vision. They have a clear mission to align their people, to put the customer in the focus of everything they do. And they're smart. They adopt their structure. They adapt or build their governance around guarding and stabilizing agility. And now in the whole middle of it is where the culture sits. And more in detail, we have 3 pillars of organizational culture that support agility. It's transparency, empowerment, and collaboration. This is the TEC model I'd like to lead you through. Start off with transparency. Let's read the quote. Without information, you cannot take responsibility. With information, you cannot avoid responsibility. I feel this quote sums a lot of the effect of transparency up. You probably know the story of the little prince who lives on this little planet, and he came across of that little rose. He's seen it, and since he's seen it, he cannot turn his back on that flower. He has to take care of it. And the same happens for all of us. If I understand the situation my company is in, especially a critical situation, I cannot pretend I've never heard it. I cannot pretend I don't understand what was important for my customer, what was not important if I dropped the ball. So that's a big part of transparency. However, there are 3 parts of it. And this is, from my experience working with the model, probably the most important part of it. Transparency, at first, most people are going to say, sure, we have that, default to open. We're all for it. We share, we don't have secrets, which is usually a lie to begin with. But people see themselves as being transparent. That's pretty usual. But then when you start getting into, okay, we got 3 components. Can you tell me, information, intention, and effect. How does transparency look like now? We start finding some blind spots that might hinder agility. Transparency with information and data, that's the first one. I mentioned the principle of default to open, what you can certainly use, like Netflix having this radical transparency that you can access pretty much every document on strategic decisions, sometimes competitor analysis, whatever have you. It's there for everyone to see if they want to. I had a recent discussion where people were afraid, we are transparent, we're sharing all the data we have, we'll have an overload. People are going to be completely intimidated by the load of data and information they have to cope with. That's not how it has to be. We can also very easily apply the pull principle, finding out together with the people, what do you need to take better decisions? Where do you find the data? Pull it when you need it. So that's an important part of information and data. What it actually does, it enables people on every level of the organization to take informed and smart decisions. But it's twofold. There is a use and even a need from the company's perspective as well. Yet let's use Zara as an example, the Spanish fashion retailer. They instruct their people to be sensors of the market. So in the store, the sales personnel, a customer comes in, they start asking you questions, they observe you a little bit, and you come up empty-handed or you have one piece. They engage you in a conversation. What were you looking for? Is that not the color you were looking for? Is there something else you couldn't find here? So they collect information. If they have the clothes available, great service. They can point you right to it. If not, they keep in mind what you're answering. So this is Zara's way of being very smart, sensing early what are the trends in the fashion industry. What do our people look for? There's a system behind this. You put the information in a program, and that gets analyzed and actually used for decision making. So we have at Zara, it's a little older research article I read from 2016. However, the percentage of products that fail for Zara was 1% compared to 10 to 16% of the competitors. So that is a story that also tells us transparency with information and data goes both ways. We need the employees as well to contribute to our data gathering. Transparency with intention and plans. Put a little nice soft image here for several reasons. Honestly, I have not met a company yet where there's not a tremendous amount of cognitive and emotional waste by analyzing rumors. Have you heard this? Did you see this guy in the meeting? That was odd. I wonder what he meant. We haven't heard from the top, about the new strategy. They're probably changing plans already. What's going on? And this energy is absolutely wasted. It's a load no one really needs. Now, being radically transparent with your intention and plans helps to, will never prevent it completely, but it will help to eliminate it, minimize it, and help us to build trust throughout the organization. What do I mean by this? From a leadership perspective, or someone who's leading an initiative, we usually, we sit on our desk, we try to find out the best way of doing things, sometimes struggle really hard to come up with the best decision possible, and then there we are. Here's the decision made. We might give one or two reasons. So people see this and take it from there, but they do not start guessing. What's the story behind it? Why now? Why this decision? Why did he not mention XYZ as a reason for it? So radically transparent means I'm telling the whole story. What happened that made me think of a solution or made me think I have to change strategy or change direction? How do I feel about this? Where is my dot behind it? What am I struggling with? But here's why I still think we can go forward with that idea. What do you think? inviting people then to the discussion. This is our intentions. If you want to have it on a little higher level, we're talking about purpose, the why of the organization, but also my personal why, wearing the vision on my sleeve, let people see, see what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. Transparency with plans, that's pretty clear forward, and something the Agile methodologies have a great plan for by using information radiators, or companies like Vistaprint. They have those huge rooms that consists of the whole wall is basically a board that shows what's going on in the company, what are the strategic initiatives that start, when do they start, how it was budgeting allocated between the initiatives. There are those of you who know Agile or SAFe, for example, the framework. They're just very good tools to have this transparency of plans. That's, in my point of view, very helpful. But there's more. Understanding why we do something, and we get to the third component in a moment, helps us to experience meaning at work. And I do not have to work for an organization that's going to save the world tomorrow, but I have to understand that what I'm doing is part of a bigger picture, serves a purpose that's bigger than my own. And empirically, that's long established within organizational psychology, we have a direct effect on job satisfaction, motivation, readiness for extra effort. So the readiness to go the extra mile. This is directly performance relevant. So we'll see it, we can give you numbers, how much we can increase the performance if we get job satisfaction, motivation, and the readiness component up, which helps, or which can be done through embedding meaning in the work. It doesn't stop there. It impacts our life satisfaction, and it even impacts our personal health. It's a very powerful instrument, and something that's not so hard to embed if we adhere the standards of transparency within our work. Transparency with results and impact kind of flows into this. So here, this guy, the sad guy on the right, he's someone, he gets his instructions and he tries to do the job but on his best abilities and his best understanding. But sometimes it feels like you're producing stuff, you're doing your best, and somehow there's nothing comes back. I don't know where I'm standing. I don't know if it had any impact. I heard they stopped the project, so I guess I just wasted 2 weeks of my working hours contributing to something that simply got stopped. This is something we're not happy with. Now, on the other side, we have this happy guy here. He understands how his work contributes, and he understands, and that's even more important, how the actions he is taking impact the organization as a whole, have an impact on the customer directly. How? It's very easy. I just make a little tweak here, or I go the extra mile there. And guess what? 5 minutes later, there's a little ping, and I got an email from a colleague who saw it and said, hey, you know what? That helped me. That helped me to come forward with my idea, or whatever you have. Or I have access to real-time metrics. I tweak a marketing campaign or do a little change on a website, and I see the click rates going up. This is work that gets me motivated. I see, hey, this is my mind, my actions, and I have an impact. If I have a negative impact, okay. And still, if I can see this and measure it, that triggers curiosity. One of the drivers for innovation. It makes me want to, try to modify more and try to find out how I can influence things. An incredible, important component. Moving over to empowerment, we're talking about all this great data we're collecting, and everyone is informed to make those informed decisions. We got to let them actually do it. And this is empowerment. It comes with freedom, enablement, and ownership. So here's the former CEO of HLC Technologies, and he asked his managers, what is the business of any corporation? Clear answer, creating value for the customer. Well, where does the value get created? It's at the interfaces between employee and customer, correct? So what then should be the business of management? And here the answer would be to empower exactly these employees to create the value we need. 3 components. The first component is freedom, freedom to adapt and create. This is basic. That means how much control do I have for my work or at work? It can be simple things, deciding where I work, when I work, how I work, with whom I work. The degrees of freedom are about unlimited, really. Freedom also means to give me freedom to create, which means I have time and options to play at work, try things out, experiment, and build my own mastery, become a master of my trade, a master of my job. Incredibly motivating as well. Freedom to adapt. We talked about those insights I can gain when I have the interface with the customer, when I work with the different interfaces within the company. Doesn't matter. I get so much incredible insight here. So why not allowing people to use this insight to act? One example, I was told a retail small chain in the UK, and they had this policy that every store had to be decorated in the exact same way. Now, some stores worked well, some didn't, and some were facing new competition, basically in the neighborhood. Decorating the windows, very similar. So what happened? Half the clients went to this store, the half went to the other store. Business went down. People saw that. The employees in the store, they walked by the other store and they said, guys, that's not good. So there was a change within this retail chain to say, what, guys? You decorate your own window. They did this and business was back to normal. That's an example. Another example I like to share is the Ritz-Carlton, that hotel chain, which has been recognized for outstanding customer service. You've probably heard it. The Ritz-Carlton is going to change your life. This is the phrase they use. And what they do, and I think it's a very interesting policy, every employee here has a budget of up to $2,000 to make the customer happy based on your own judgment. There's no approval, nothing. It's based on your own judgment. You got this budget with you. There's the great story, has been also quoted a lot, of one of those big shots, really important. He left his laptop in the hotel room. He flew from Atlanta to Hawaii on a very big, important presentation. Housekeeping saw this, got on the plane, flew to Hawaii, brought him the laptop, flew home. No, didn't fly home. The story is, flew back right in the office, get back to work. So that's, yeah, you get the hang of it. There is power in these stories. But what's really interesting is, this is how they achieve it. They use the insights of the employees. They have them have the direct line of sight to the customer and act upon the insights to make or to deliver this outstanding customer service. Now, I had the pleasure to stay in a Ritz-Carlton in Florida, celebrate the first anniversary with my husband. And of course, it was great. However, it didn't meet up the expectations we had. You know, the room was supposed to have rose petals and all the good stuff. Half of it was missing. So we complained. At dinner, they brought us a nice, small, custom-made chocolate cake with a heart on it and so on. It made up for some of it, made us feel better, definitely, about it. If I would have known at that time that the budget is $2,000, I might not have been satisfied. But for now, it was a good experience. And it's a great example to actually give people the freedom to adapt and to create in their jobs. Leadership here is to try to connect that personal ambition and interests with where the company wants to go, while supporting personal growth, which can only happen if I'm allowed to make mistakes, if I'm allowed to actually grow above myself. Now, the other component is enablement. That's empowerment to take charge. This goes a little further by giving people, so when I tell people, you know what, from now on, you take your own decisions. You're fully in charge of this. And I do this and I realize no one is listening. I can't go address the manager of the other department. He won't even listen to me. So the question here is, do I have the authority to act? That's one of the components I need for true enablement. Another way of enabling people is to make sure they have all the tools they need, they have the time they need, and give them a degree of freedom to make an impact outside of their immediate job responsibility. It's a pretty straightforward approach, asking your people, here's the goal. What do you need to really do what you think is right and necessary to do it? A great example here is Borzog, a home care organization. I think they have 10,000 employees or so. A great success story. If you haven't heard of it, Google it. It's very inspirational. They have a lot of videos out there and explanations. What they did is they managed to have nurses in self-organized teams taking care of all the patient care and actually making money as well in a sector that is used to be, very drastic in terms of limited freedom, in terms of high pressure to be profitable, etc. And now they turn it around. The founder said, let's just give nurses their job back. Let them do their job. Let them take care of the patients. And it's a great success model. The nurses take all the decisions about the individual care for the patient. There's no real guidance. There's no policy. They don't ask for approval. They do what's right. And it's a success story. A little bit further, talking about ownership. You've probably hear these things, not my job. I'm sorry, I don't think I'm responsible for this. Let's say we have an unhappy client and nobody's fault. I did see an email. Well, I got an email, but honestly, doesn't belong in my department. It's not my responsibility. We dropped the ball, we constantly drop the ball. It's a big deal trying to get different departments or silos working together, because when my silo ends, I drop the potato. It's no longer mine. And now ownership means to turn this around. I don't think in my job responsibilities, I think end to end. And having the structures reflect end-to-end responsibility is a tremendous upraise to install real ownership in people. With the bias toward action, you probably heard, don't ask, just do, Spotify's saying. So there's a lot of power in here. When a dot just act, we iterate, we'll find out if we're wrong. We got metrics in place, we can self-correct, we can self-steer because we have the transparency that enables us to do so. So ownership really, when you have companies that have transparency and empowerment, those are great places to work. And then in the discussion, you find that they're very happy. They say, you know what, people are satisfied, everything is going really good. You ask them, okay, what's next? What's next for you? What's in your pipeline? What's the next innovation? What's the next strategy? What are you planning on doing? They come up empty. So there is, when you have to ask the question, so who owns this question? What's up with your people? They seem to be great and in line. Where are the new ideas? And this is where ownership can help. There is a story of a French sports manufacturer who tried desperately to grow internationally and into new markets. They've been trying this since years and not really successful. So they just got all their employees together, 60-something thousand, and announced, please, we want to enter new markets. Go ahead, identify a market that we could penetrate. We'll give you the budget and the time and let you run with it. We support you. They did this. It was an incredible, successful initiative. They grew within the next 4 years. They grew in more markets than they've did in all their past. This is ownership. Come up with an idea and own it. I get you what you need, but you're responsible and accountable to make this thing successful. The scenario where we actually have this good company with the first two facets, we have often that situation where we're very satisfied. And the questions we got to ask, if too many people exceed your expectations, go ahead and raise the bar. And this is where you introduce ownership. The third facet is collaboration. That brings it all together. We are transparent, we're empowered. So now we have to make sure we actually act as an organization versus just individual people trying to get ahead and not using synergies. Neurons that fire, they wire together. This is a great description of what's going on in our brain. So two neurons that communicate with each other. They build like a line of communication. The more I communicate, the stronger this line is, the easier is the communication going forward. Now, if I stop talking to others, it's flexible. Those connections get weaker and eventually die off, and new ones create. This is placidity. And if we try to transfer this to an organization, and this is where we want to be, we want people to collaborate broadly, to exchange, get to know each other, build your networks, contribute where you can, and learn together to form these connections that can then flexibly adapt. There's a new topic, new people get together, but there is already something established to communication. So activating the base, the knowledge base we have in the company, the collective wisdom, activating the collective capacity we have is going to be much easier. Exchange, first component, that's a lot about just telling people what's going on, sharing your knowledge, and sharing perspective. We'll never know what this number really is if we haven't asked people on both sides of it. Then we have the second facet, which is contribution. Being in the traditional organization, also being in a lot of agile organizations, our current job profile delivers this box. We get into it, if we fill in all the edges, if we expand to the edges of our job box, we're successful, we're getting good performance rating, good thing. However, what we do not see is that you see it here in the tree. I, as a person, I bring much more to this company than simply the requirements of my job mirror. People are more than their CV. We have talents, we have experiences, skills, passion that is untapped if we stick to this little job box. So the shift would be from doing your job to actually creating value. And again, twofold. Companies will be able to utilize the potential that people bring to the table. And people, we're able to develop our potential. We're able to have jobs that are enriched, that are enable us to grow, that are challenging. And if I'm passionate for something, I find a way to contribute at this corner of the company. But it requires role flexibility, certainly in the systems, the bonus structure, remuneration, but also reporting lines. Do I have the flexibility to work for another team and still be rewarded at the end of the day? So there's a lot of flexibility that has to happen. Now, the third facet of collaboration is the learning facet. You probably heard the saying, connected products need connected minds. And the same is true if we want to have an organization that learns. And if you remember how culture is formed by learning, there's no other way of developing your culture but by learning. I have my individual learnings. Of course, I can go ahead and share these. I learn on a team level. Again, this is going to help my personal learning, and the teams learn from each other. So we cascade the learnings up. We cascade the experience you make with these new learnings down. Trial and adapt, inspect and adapt. And we'll go from here. That does require psychological safety. However, psychological safety does not equal cozying or artificial consensus. And that is a message that some companies seem to forget. If we want to improve collaboration, we improve relationships and exchange. People get to know each other. We have nice office environments. Fire brilliant jerks. You've probably heard this thing. You cannot tolerate the brilliant jerks if they ruin your working atmosphere. However, if you want to be in a progressive organization where the best idea wins, you got to build up a tolerance of disagreement, a tolerance of tension we have in discussions, and keep that door open to walk alone. You got your idea, it's disruptive. You won't get a consensus. It's too disruptive. So what you're going to do? Discuss as long as the idea somehow gets watered down and passes the consensus, or you're going to walk alone and make the change happen. So this is a very fine balance, but important is to understand collaboration does not mean simply growing closer together. It means establishing a way of working together and a way of interpersonal relationship that can endure challenge and endure tension. That's it. So what I wanted to do, so it's not too far off. I just wanted to give you a few examples of hacking culture, small little behaviors, small changes and tweaks in your behavior that might help developing the culture sometimes faster than we even expected. Let's look at transparency here. One thing is, ask yourself the informations you take day by day or exceptional decisions you take, what information would actually make a difference to you and help you to take better decisions? Go find the data, go ask for it. A lot of people I work with, they never ask for it. They know, but they never ask. So go ahead, ask, request this information. That's yourself, that's the black one. Now, we're also responsible not only to challenge the culture, to make sure we can work under the TEC conditions, but we're part of the system. So we have to make sure we enable others to work transparent, empowered, and collaborative. So this is where a possibility would be to start sharing your own data with someone who might benefit from it. Intention, tell the whole story, always start from the beginning, be transparent about your feelings about it. We've covered this. And now to enable others to do the same, start asking questions. If someone drops a package on your desk, ask why. Just simply asking these questions is going to make everyone, or one by one, start thinking broader, thinking in lines of intention, why, trigger thoughts, is there a better way we could achieve this? Effect, measure, observe your work's impact. If you can, find ways to get feedback, inspect your work, and provide feedback. That's the easiest way to have others benefit from the transparency with effect and results. Empowerment, play at work, push the boundaries. I heard a nice saying, if you've never hit a wall, you never went far enough. So go do it, push the boundaries. For others, try. If you're in charge of anything, doesn't matter what, 1 week, one rule down. Just test yourself here. Enablement, set yourself up for success. So the things we talked about, making sure you get the right tools, the authority, the right reach, right connections, etc. Set yourself up for success before you take initiative. And for others, they ask for something. If it doesn't hurt, allow it. Ownership, try starting an initiative and empower others to do the same. Collaboration, exchange, the lunch roulette, these kind of things. 1 week, one colleague, you get to know better and share your knowledge. For contribution, this is a nice challenge to take home with. Find a way to utilize just one more talent you have, or contribute with one more skill you have inside the organization. And in collaborating with others, don't do your job, but add value. Learning, 1 week, one improvement, challenge yourself, and talk with others about failures and learning. What you have in the Amra, I don't know if you put it in the chat yet, you'll find a little worksheet you can use if you want to challenge yourself on this, and you'll also find a handout with some of the slides here I present and a summary in addition. To close this up, applying the Agile Culture Code requires work, requires preparation. And this is something I don't get tired in asking. You can't just jump into an Agile way of working. You need preparation. You need to make sure the frame is set correctly. So set your team up for success and not for failure. How? Wiring for Agile work. That means channel ambition, Foster intrinsic motivation by transparency, empowerment, and collaboration. And what's your responsibility? People leave leaders, not companies. So one of you not in a leadership position? Lead from where you are. This is the progressive organization. We don't need the position to be a leader. We lead from where we are. So be a good one, be inspirational. And if you want, start with your personal mission. What face do you want to give your work? What do you stand for? And what is your mission? You find this in the handout. Thank you very much. Go ahead and stay in touch. You have the contact information in the handout as well. I love hearing from you, hearing your thoughts, even after this session.